This is a Heart and Hand production.
Hello and welcome to Simply the Rest, the show where we look round the rest of the league, watch sports scene, listen to Radio Clyde so you do not have to. I am Kev, your host, and I would say as always, but it's been so long since we've done one of these. I'm trying to think what the world was like. Last time we'd done one was probably before Michael Stewart was certainly banned from Hampden. I think a Tazbar was like 10 pence. And I don't know, something else funny we'll insert here. Joining me as always is the wonderful Mr. Stephen Harrigan. Stevie, how are you?
Not bad, and probably last time we did it, Straight Outta Hormuz was open. It's open again, so you can probably guess how long it's been.
But the M8 wasn't open because that's been
No,
shut since.
no, the M8 was built quicker than it takes to repair it.
We, of course, are here to look at all things, both sides of the M8 and, of course, further north, or the Highlands, as we tend to call them. Obviously, we record this, the split is about to happen, so we will not go too in-depth into certain teams because we're going to be talking about them a lot over the next couple of weeks. So we'll pick out 3 topics. 2 are from the top half, one for the general about the bottom half of the league. Stevie, overall, what do you make of this season? Because, again, we always try to take our blue-tinted glasses off on this show, but I think it's fair to say it's been a rather exciting league. It's certainly been summed up by the player and team of the season nominations, which I never thought I'd see Paul McGinn linked in that way. A couple of other Motherwell players in there. But overall, what's your reaction been to this season as a whole?
Yeah, there's a lot of Motherwell players in there for being fourth and potentially finishing fifth, isn't there? So that's a debate that we can have, and I'm sure many people will have, and certainly I would have. But overall, look, we can always talk about the overall quality. Has it come up? Has it come down? Is that why this league is so exciting? But there's been a huge amount of drama. When this season is eventually put a bow on, we hope we're going to be top and coming out victorious. But what a season it will be to tell. There's been so many stories from different cup competitions to the league, to ups and downs, to managerial changes, to just other stuff on and off the field. I think it's been a wonderful season. Look, we live in very close proximity to the Super League that is English Premier League and everything that comes with that. It's marketed, it's publicised, it's shoved in our face, it's on 24/7. Our league is everything they're not, and I think we have a very unique and a wonderful product here that we've sat here for many years and said we've undersold, and I think this year brings that to the fore. It's a great product. It's a great. It's exciting. It's exciting, and because nobody can predict what's going to happen. At the top of the table, there are 3 teams going for the title. That's very, very unusual in itself. Hearts are the first team since the split to be top at the split, out with Old Firm, which, again, I know you're going to touch on a point, but that in itself is just a great achievement. The bottom, you can say, and we'll touch on that as well, might be what you would call done and dusted. But there's so many storylines. Teams that were good last season have dropped off. Teams that came up are excelling. The only thing I would go back to, and I know it's something we've consistently said on this platform for a number of years as well, I think we could do another couple of teams just to break up that monotony of playing, the same teams so many times. That would help everybody. I think the quality is there. As we record, it's obviously Scottish Cup semi-final weekend. We sadly are not in it. We'd like to be in it. But there's teams in that championship who have that quality at the top end of that could probably or could step up. We've seen that, the results. I mean, Dunfermline are playing this weekend. They bodied Aberdeen, like Partick. Teams like that are more than capable of holding their own. Yes, over the course of the season, they might struggle, but they would have greater finances. But it all comes back to TV deals, lack of marketing. But in terms of bums through the seats, people going to games, once again, Scotland is one of the best that's going. And look, I think we can talk our game down a lot of times. There's a lot of things to be improved on, from VARs to referees to overall match experiences, facilities, all that type of stuff. But generally, it's an exciting league and it delivers. And this year has been one that will be talked about for years and years to come, I think.
It certainly has. It's been Very much like a roller coaster. If anyone's a roller coaster fan, where you go on it, you go upside down, you don't know what's happening, you don't know where you are, your head's spinning, and sometimes you don't realise how good it was and how much you enjoyed it till you're off and safely back on the ground. For anyone that's ever done the Velocicoaster in our Universal Studios, that's exactly what that is like. Obviously, I think the way our season started, we had always been a bit negative with this season because it was an absolute riot. You look across the city, they then brought in their own riot. They weren't content with us having the worst ever manager. They decided to try and trump it. They can't see green cheese. We're going to talk about Hearts a wee bit. We'll touch on Motherwell. The thing for me, Steve, is it's not tight because teams are just doing that low block thing and living off setting balls and corners and set plays, right? There is that. But you look at Hearts, right? Grinding out results, challenging for the league, brilliant. Motherwell playing really good stuff with players that you honestly, I mean, how many players would you take for that Motherwell back line? Falkirk, who I've not really touched on, we of course played them and we're going to play them again the last day of the season. Had an excellent season coming up, playing really good football. And then, see, there's so many stories throughout this campaign. Our pal David Martindale stating aside that Livi didn't really do much to change the flow of things. They've really been done for a long time. But some of the stats, I mean, we've all heard the one that now was it twice the top teams have won in the same weekend. I think Aberdeen and Livi are close to the same amount of wins or something. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely incredible, some of the stats kicking about with this league. Aberdeen, of course, looking for a manager. Everyone thought they would go for the one in Paisley. They toured the world and then went for the one in Paisley. What a season it's been, but I don't think we'll be able to look back and really enjoy it until hopefully we've got that league title tucked away and then we come back to review it. But let's talk about Hearts, right? Obviously, we're going to play them. They've got a big say. I think many people had you asked in October, they've decided they'll be away by Christmas, they'll be away by Easter, where the clocks go back, whatever, but they're stuck in there. It's not always been pretty. But overall, what do you think Hearts can take for this season? Because we tell ourselves lies as football fans, right? If you said to a Hearts fan, start the season, look, you'll lead all the way, you'll be top going into the split, but you'll just fall short. Every one of them after the seasons they've had would have went, I'd love that, it'd be absolutely brilliant. But now that's not going to be good enough, and they're probably going to throw a hissy fit if they don't win the league. But do you think overall this experience will be good for them? Because I'm going to come on and touch about Motherwell, but I can't see Hearts being picked apart as much as, like, say, a Motherwell would be. But what would your thoughts be?
The challenge for Hearts is going to be the challenge that's been faced by teams out with the Old Firm when they do well. European football, 3 games a week, demands in the squads, rotation that's needed, everything else that's factored in. That'll be the challenge for Hearts going into the next season. As we sit here right now, Hearts have been the most consistent, the most impressive team this season. That is not debatable. I think it's only kind of like week 5 or something that they dropped down to second place, and then obviously briefly the other week when we played before them. But that's a testament to Derek McInnes, and no matter what happens this season, to take a team which were, I think, 9th last season, and to have that level and bring that level of consistency was pretty much the same group of players. There's been a few sprinkling of talents, like Claudio Brad, who came in and done really well, but he's fed off good players in that team and in the system that's worked. They haven't been always pretty, but titles are not always won by the team that are the most pretty. Sometimes it's you can out the results. They've done that. Challenge for Hearts going into this split is the baggage they carry. They're carrying about a lot of dead weight from past life experiences, but to many Hearts fans it will be, but it's still very fresh in the Hearts fans' memory. Okay, that's going to be coming up as we approach that split, and that's what we hope to take advantage of. But overall, to get to match day 33, the top of the league, yes, they had a really substantial point gap at one point over the rest. But yeah, they would have absolutely, any Hearts fan would have sort of delirious. It's never been done in all the years that, okay, and take out a couple of our early years in our lifetime, right? But in our lifetime, this type of consistency over the course of a season up until this point just hasn't been witnessed. Now, yes, again, we go back to that point of where there's mitigating factors. There's the likes of ourselves with Russell Mann. We were doing it, 9s, 10s, whatever we were. And then you had, moving on to Celtic and third manager season. That's not Hearts' problem. From a Hearts perspective, they have done everything that's been after them and more. Can they continue it? We hope not. We'll find out in the coming weeks. But as we sit here right now, they're the best team in the league for a reason, and the most consistent team in the league for a reason. Defensively, they've been very good. They've had a lot of injuries, and yet you look at that squad, and you said we're going to touch on Motherwell next, and the amount of players that Motherwell have got in that team of the year and all that kind of stuff. That tells you how good the team is over the individuals. Hearts don't have a squad that you look at and go, yeah, that's a title-winning squad, but they have a really good team ethic. Do they have that mentality? Do they have that quality overall to see them over the line? We don't yet know. And look, if any one of the three teams wins the league, it's not going to be a huge shock from this point in. We just hope. And look, the momentum, I think, is with us at this point in time, but there's still very difficult games to go, including going to Tynecastle and Parkhead. But from Hearts' standpoint, incredible. I mean, to be top of the league where they are, they've conceded the least amount of goals in the league, which is always a good sign. I think it's 28. When you look at other factors, in terms of clean sheets, they're up there, they're second. So they found a way to win, and that comes from, I think, let's make no bones about it. The appointment of Derek McInnes was always a good manager. Didn't suddenly ever become a bad manager. His results with teams in this country is there for everybody to see. And the turnaround that he's had at Hearts is incredible. Tony Bloom gets a lot of credit. Tony Bloom came out talking about what a challenge for the league. I don't think he predicted it would be like this. And yes, it takes a drop off from ourselves and our friends across the city to have that possibility, but you still have to take advantage of it and take nothing away. If Hearts going to win this title, they deserve it. But they've been the most consistent team up until this point, and I think we have to give them an enormous amount of credit. We have to pay them respect. And look, arguably, if we're looking at the games as we tick down these, and it is one game at a time, but there's maybe a more fear or trepidation factor with us going to Tynecastle than it is at Parkhead. I think we have players in forward areas that can hurt most teams, but certainly, strangely, you might feel more confident going to Parkhead than you would at Tynecastle because of the challenges that in the matchups they provide. So again, that's testament to Hearts' season, that's testament to Hearts' management. Tony Bloom's obviously come in, a couple of years ago and brung his data and everything else. It's been so much talked about and backed up. But it also brought in a lot of players and brought in managers before. It takes the right mix, and I think they've got that blend now. And you've heard them consistently over the course of the season how they've talked about how they reach decisions in terms of player transfers, players recruitment, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a pretty decent season. To be top of the league at this point in time, yeah, the margins are getting smaller and smaller. They haven't been winning as many games as they should, or they had done. They had that blip in form, and draws might cost them as we thought it might cost us at one point. But as we sit here right now, heading into the split, Hearts are the most consistent, informed team, the team that deserves to be top of the table.
Yeah, I think a lot of praise goes Derek's way. I know he's a sort of wee bit of Marmite around here. I've always thought he's a really good manager. Of course, he's always sort of managed, I don't want to say the lower end of the league, right? Because he obviously managed Aberdeen when they were challenging Celtic when we were out of the leagues, but it was a bit of a sort of false economy with what they were playing against. Celtic were sort of just treading water, weren't they, till we came back up. Done a wonderful job at Kilmarnock. But the thing was that there was maybe not enough silverware there. Now, of course, let's be honest here, the most dominant Celtic team there's ever been, it's very hard for a Rangers team to compete with that, never mind anyone else with a much lower budget. A lot of the Hearts players, I think they've got, like you said, they're a much better unit than they are individuals, but there's certain parts of that. Shanklin's huge for them. I think you've seen since he came back into the side, and you might see Kizarida start to pick up because his form really dropped off when Shanklin went out the side. Braga has been pretty constant throughout the season, scored big goals. He's probably the one that they'll maybe sell in the summer.
And again, who's their best players been? Okay, we go Braga, but you touched on it there. Braga's fed off Shanklin, right? When Shanklin's been out, Braga did step up, but he struggled, right? Since Shanklin's been back, is it any coincidence that he's back to what he was? Kizarides has kind of fall off. The likes of Halkett, when he was out, they struggled. their best players has been down that spine in the team and been a core group of players that were already there and are players that are Scottish players for the most part, aren't they?
Yeah, and again, this is where credit to McInnes goes as well, because look at ourselves, right? We the group of players at the start of the season, we would have all just been happily they left. But now you look at them and what Danny Rose get out of them. So it shows you the difference a good to decent manager can make in a sort of average squad that I still maintain we've got, right, for a Rangers squad. So to get that out of Hearts has been incredible. You're right. I mean, people can say you don't win any trophies for being top that length of time. That's true, 100% true. But you said it as well, the first team to be top of the table at the split that's not been an Old Firm team, and an incredible achievement. And as I hope the Hearts fans, because football fans are very fickle, I hope they don't turn on them if they do walk away empty-handed next season. But it'll be interesting to see how they recruit for next year, because if they do get in Europe, it will be that challenge. See, I've banged on about it long enough, the fact that you look at all the teams that get into Europe, Hibs, Hearts, Kilmarnock, they all end up sacking the manager because they can't cope with the 3 games a week. But something to look out for. But hopefully Hearts finish second. I think that'd be just rewards. We'll take the top spot. Thank you, Derek. And you finish second. Everyone's a winner. Right, point 2, Stevie. Motherwell, will they be dismantled in the summer? Now, I include their manager in this because I don't know, outside of Mark McGee, I've never seen someone audition for a Celtic job with his media interviews the way this chap has. Of course, you've got Mazza you've got Just, you've got Elliot Watt. There's so many that I think the Motherwell team will probably be disbanded in the summer. Would you be happy to see us move from McGinn for a centre back?
Sorry. Look, this is a team that's the sum of its parts. Again, you have to give credit for somebody coming in, implementing that style, taking it on board, and producing the brand and style of football that they have. Motherwell are the brewdog of the Premiership this year. I don't like that kind of neck bearded shite beer. But that's what the equivalent are. They get all the plaudits because they're the hipsters. Again, they're consistent. They're consistently the 4th best team in this league without question at this point in time. They struggled at the start of the season a wee bit. We played them obviously in that first game in Russell Martins. They came back, dipped, and then they found a really good form and consistency, and that's kind of where they've been. But they have a certain way of playing. Again, we're going to touch on that when we play them, next week. So a week from now, we'll be talking Motherwell again. We'll be talking about what they've done well, what they do, and how they like to play. But over the last 3 or 4 games, they look to be running a wee bit out of steam. They've also had a sniper problem in Lanarkshire. I don't know if you've seen over the course of the season. The players seem to go down with great ease. It's obviously resulted in some bans, and we can argue about the severity, if that was warranted of when they faced, but they have had that issue throughout the course of the season, so I think that was sending a message to them. Look, the Motherwell manager, he's certainly confident in his own ability. Okay, you talked about him auditioning for some jobs. He's confident in himself, and maybe that's just his nature. Does a lot of talking for a guy that's probably going to finish lower than the table than Stuart McCall managed with Motherwell. Yes, the brand of football is exciting. Yes, what he's got out this group of players is incredible, and I think that's the big story for him in Motherwell. Is we're going to talk about potential manager of the year candidates, in the next coming weeks, and we do this ridiculous thing where we announce it before the season's finished. Right, he'll be in there, but it's because of the group of players he's got out of. I didn't foresee, with all due respect to the likes of McGinn, and look, McGinn on the ball, he's not that good, and teams are starting to show that, and we might be able to talk about that. But he's had a really good season because he said his game simplified. Other players they've had that where they drop the 2 6s in, then they'll drop the 10s in, and the fullbacks will go wide. They have got an exciting brand of football. They're still not getting the numbers through the doors that they would probably like. Are you going to get a better Motherwell team in your lifetime if you're a Motherwell fan? And again, they're not seeming to fill in that stand, and they still do that ridiculous thing of putting away fans in that top tier where you can't see the bottom of the goals, which is, again, we talk about ticket issues and all that kind of stuff. it's just petty and poor. I don't know why they do it, but that's a side point. Askell seems to talk an awful lot after the game. Seems to have a lot to say. He's not achieved an awful lot yet, but I don't want to say too much because it might still give us a bloody nose. Let's leave it another week or so, and then we can get him out of the way and deal with it. Because look, we should have disposed of them last time at Fir Park, and they were quite happy after the game to send out the likes of Stephen O'Donnell and McGinn. And I think we all know what that meant for our post-match interviews. So I would say keep that in mind. Keep that firmly in mind. Keep in mind their reaction to that draw. They got at Fir Park. That should be the fuel or added fuel to us. Not that we need any. We're going for a title, but just keep that in mind. But they're a great success story. There's always a team that does. Last season it was St Mirren. There's been teams that have done it in the past. Are they a team you'll look at next season, as you say, getting dismantled and take a drop off? Players will leave. That's the nature of a club like Motherwell. But they've done really well to sustain this position by selling players like Sir Lennon Miller. Obviously started the season and moved on. They've had players in the past that have done similar with. So I think you have to give them huge credit in their recruitment, their style of play. And look, this just isn't just as simple as saying they found a good manager. That would be not giving credit where it's due, because even in previous seasons when they had the German manager, the name escapes me, it's a similar profile. So I don't want to say it's plug in and play, but they've certainly looked at what they want in terms of a manager, how they want it to play. That's filtering down, and that's what makes Motherwell exciting. And at this point in time, the Motherwell project is doing really well. It is starting to kind of tire out a wee bit. I think that's fair to say. And they probably are where they are, and they're now in a fight for I say they could finish and might well finish fifth. Because Hibs probably have that, but Hibs do have a stronger squad. Hibs are just that most consistent of inconsistent teams, as they always tend to be, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a very Hibs of a season, but we'll leave them for a later date. Right, Steve, the last point I want to touch on, because I agree with you, I think Motherwell could see a whole dismantling going on, and it'll be how they bounce back from that. Of course, they might not make a European spot, in which case, on paper it's poor, but it might actually benefit them next year if some of the players have been over the course. It might help them in the long run, who knows. But bottom of the league, of course, Livingston, only with 16 points. But then at the top of the bottom six, you've got Dundee United in 40. And wedged between them are Kilmarnock in 28, St Mirren 30, Dundee and Aberdeen in 33. Who do you think joins Livingston in the fight against relegation? Because St Mirren looked to have picked up a wee bit under the interim manager. Stephen Presley's Dundee have caused a few headaches for the teams at the top of the table, but they still find themselves down there. Aberdeen have had a bit of a riot of a season. We talked briefly at the start about that long hunt for a manager. And Kilmarnock under Neil McCann, I thought would have kicked on a wee bit more than they had. But what's your thoughts? Who ends up in that bottom or second bottom place?
And this probably goes why the season's still exciting. Like Livingston, we suspect now are gone. I think they need to do something that we haven't witnessed this season. That's win games and win games, quite frequently. Okay, so we don't foresee that. But Livingston as a team are probably one of the best 18-yard box to 18-yard box teams in this league. You touched on earlier about being low blocks and things like that. They've changed their style from when Davy Martindale left to obviously Bartley being there. Results haven't really had that great an impact, but they've always been a team that's been really good box to box. It's just defending, they've been a wee bit suspect, and then they've not been clinical, not created enough chances, and I think that goes back to last season where they overachieved. Above them, Aberdeen have got the best squad in terms of personnel and experience and who you look at and players in forward areas. It's between them and St Mirren, I would say. In fact, Nisbet's great experience. He's a really good striker of the ball. The goal that he got against Hibs the other week, the one that was, I think it just bounced over the bar. It's just a great first touch he takes. He hasn't got a lot of pace, and then you've got St Mirren like Lundlu and Ayunga who are more physical. Dundee United are the best footballing team out of that top six. That's why they're over and above it. But they're now going to miss Fata. They should be absolutely fine. Dundee, Simon Murray, do what he does, comes in streaks and bigs up goals. You've got players in wide areas that they're really compact. Kilmarnock, every time, they seem to take one step forward and two steps back, don't they? To me, it comes down to just their general defending. They signed Kilroos, who if anybody listened to us when he was at Aberdeen, I didn't think he was a great goalkeeper. I know they had to get a goalkeeper because of the situation that they had with Strycek. But yeah, you kind of think at the moment they're going to be the team in the playoff. Probably between them and St Mirren. Depends what happens this weekend. We hope St Mirren put out Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final, and that would give them a boost. But if they don't, St Mirren under Craig McLeish have done really well and changed how they play. They've been, he's talked about wanting the team to play in more freedom, and they certainly are doing that. They're a team that's completely altered their style, but I'm not sure they've got the players to do that. And as we witnessed at the Parkhead, they had a lot of possession. They didn't really hurt them an awful lot. There wasn't, for all people say, well, Celtic are poor, they were, but for the opening 20, 30 minutes, they still created an awful lot of chances and probably should have been 2 or 3 up. So you can control games as much as you want, but if you're not creating chances, then it's not going to, when you're down in that kind of relegation fight and relegation group, everybody plays each other, it becomes almost a war of attrition. I think St Mirren will have enough. If I was betting at the moment, I would probably say that AGR and Kilmarnock will be that team in 11th place. I really do like Neil McCann. I just think some of the players he's been left with in the defensive sense are not very good. They're struggling, and you see that, and it's just basic mental errors. And I go back to things like when they're 2-0 up against Celtic at Rugby Park, they bring on the big boy, I think it was Dackers, he's about 6'9" or something, and his task, if you're bringing him on, run the ball into the corner, and he was doing it, and he gave the ball away, Celtic up the park and score, and then of course get the late equaliser. It's simple things like that. If you've got that physical frame, as a manager, you must be tearing your hair out, because all you want to do is run the court, get your player to run the court. You're bringing them on just to waste time, and you're saying you're that size. When you get the ball, we're putting in that corner, just burn some time, hold it up, buy the foul, and so often you see that, or it's a defensive lapse, and yeah, they take 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They have results that you go, yeah, that looks really good. They've got, obviously young Fernand Curtis here that's doing really well. Other attacking players, like Hugo, they've got goal scorers, Anderson. But I do worry for them a wee bit in a defensive sense, because I don't think they have that ability to just shut out teams down there, like perhaps the likes of Aberdeen are a wee bit struggling, but they've got better players in the midfield area. Dundee certainly have better defenders. St Mirren have better defenders. So yeah, it's going to come down to that. And yeah, I think Neil McCann, I think he would win the playoff, put it that way. I would expect him, because it's a tough ask for any team coming out of the Championship. I know they're going to be playing with momentum on their side, but I think Neil McCann deserves a longer run at this, no matter what happens, and I hope he gets it. I don't see them going down, but at the moment I would say them being in the playoffs positions, because I don't think defensively they're that strong.
I'd probably agree with that. I think a couple of weeks ago, St Mirren, I might have tipped to go down there, or maybe Aberdeen, but I don't know if Kilmarnock got enough defensively to stay up, and I wouldn't mind them staying up stay out the battle, because I think if we have a friendly manager, Neil McCann, that we could trust with our players, I think it could be useful for us if we're being a wee bit selfish. Would Curtis go back there next year? Would he be more involved with us? Who knows? Could we then put out 1 or 2 more of our youngsters to help them out and help us out, of course, which is the main point of it? I wouldn't be adverse to that. Anything else to add, Steve, before we wrap up this wee show? We just thought we'd check in, since we've not done one so long. We'll maybe come back at the end of the year and do our team player goal of the year, if you like.
Yeah, I think we should do that. And again, if there's enough interest, I know we keep saying we'll do a Q&A for our own show in terms of the preview, but if there's enough interest to do one of this, even the week after the season, the week after the Scottish Cup final, something like that, if people want us to discuss that and want to make points, if there's a general interest, let us know. We'll do something like that. If you've got ideas, we've done things in the past where we've talked about, we think, projecting the summer, so we're certainly open to doing things. Look, the top 6 is very set, and as we're looking at it, for me, I'll fire a question back to you. There's always a team in that top 6 that takes a step back. You asked the question, do you think Motherwell will be dismantled? Do you think Falkirk will be dismantled? And are they the obvious candidates to take that step back up the top 6? And look, even if they survive in the Premiership next year, that's still a great rise, and that story and everything else, it's still a success story for them. But are they the most obvious team to take a step back, or do you see it Hibs, because obviously some of their funding's been cut with the White Knights pulling out? Where do you see that step back coming?
Falkirk have been interesting because they've got a lot of that core all the way up. So if they lose a good few other, I don't want to say bigger names, but their main players. That'll be interesting. Hibs, of course, losing Boyle in the summer. He's away. Again, that might be a big turnover, like you say, lost some of the finance. So again, that could be interesting. And then, of course, Motherwell that we touched on. So yeah, I mean, like you said earlier on, it's to get this sort of balance in the league, you need the better teams to get worse. But it will be interesting to see how that sort of next rank and file do when they lose a lot of players. Hearts as well. Their goalkeeper situation. Shanklin's picked up more injuries. He's not getting any younger. Will be interesting in people like Devlin, Braga. So yeah, it will be all changing this summer. But
I will say I heard Hearts fans actually talking about Claudio Braga getting called up for Portugal team for the World Cup, and I'm thinking, I mean, look at it's had a good season, but he ain't that technical level. Come on, go and look at that Porto team that played last night, get put out by Nottingham Forest. The technical ability we played them. There's a lot of teams, a lot of players that far more technical ability. But yeah, it shows he's doing well. He's an excellent player. I liken him to the likes of Maida, slightly better. That's what he provides to Hearts. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Hearts will be the one. But for me, I probably agree. I think it's going to be Falkirk next year. John McGlynn always goes and gets really good players. His recruitment's excellent. And that pitch and that wind, it's interesting. But if they lose the likes of Barney Stewart, they lose the likes of Miller, maybe a couple other players. They're hard players to replace. Quality is hard to replace. So, obviously got a few loan players there. They'll be going back. They might get better loans because teams will look at them and go, look, that's a place that we want to send players. But as Dundee United found last season, trying to replicate that year and year is a bit of a struggle, isn't it?
It is, really is. But we'll put a bow on this episode. Stevie, thank you as always, buddy.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
We will try, I promise we'll try and find more of a time over the summer next year. We'll try and do more of these shows. People do like them. It's just been finding the time. And that's including people like Ian and James. We've had more people this year, but we've had less hours in the day. But as always, thank you very much for listening. We will speak to you again on the preview.